We're trying to get the identity of these two guys and these two suspects in this robbery. But initially when I was watching this case and viewing it, my first thoughts are that it's probably going to be something to a sort of a jugging, because she's got $19,000 cash in an envelope in which she's and I couldn't really tell at this point what exactly she was doing. Whenever you're ready. And so she's, it ends up being, once I start digging into the report and the work that the detective has done, is that she's actually at like a crypto kiosk, depositing money into that. So then I start looking into this, and I realize that this is much deeper than just a jugging, because at that point I realized that it's probably not going to be a jugging. It's going to be a case where these two guys, it's a crime of opportunity, essentially, that they see an envelope, they believe that could be a large sum of money, and it ends up being a large sum of money. It's a total of $19,000, which they steal. So what makes this an aggravated robbery is the fact that she's 80 years old. What would have been just a theft from person now becomes a first-degree felony because of that. But it's important now that we go over a sequence of events as far as how everything happened, because it's one of the wildest things that I've seen in my career with the department. And it's, so the second reasoning for this is going to be for awareness to the public, because this is very important, especially the more that I dug into this and just what I discovered from the detective work in the case and so forth. So I'm going to go over a sequence of events as to what happens in this timeline, so it kind of makes more sense as to what landed her here on this day, which is on July 12th. So on July 9th, this 80-year-old female victim receives a phone call from a lady who claims her name is Jennifer. So Jennifer says that she works for a bank, ironically the same bank that she does business with, one of them. So Jennifer informs her that the banks have been hacked, or that particular bank has been hacked, that other ones are in jeopardy as well, and that this victim is going to have to move in order to keep her money safe to a cryptocurrency. So Jennifer then convinces the victim to also download an app onto her phone called AnyDesk. And then she puts this app onto her phone, in which AnyDesk is an app where you can control somebody else's device remotely. So now this Jennifer has access to this 80-year-old female's phone, in which she's able to see her bank accounts and so forth. So in the process, she goes over the phone and sees that there's two accounts that she could see and how much money she has in it. So Jennifer, over a 4-day period, Jennifer has this 80-year-old female withdraw roughly $76,000 in cash from two banks. And so, and it's for the purpose of moving the money into a crypto account using a crypto kiosk. So interestingly enough, so Jennifer informs this female that she basically coaches her as to what to say, knowing that the banks are going to inquire, in which they did, why she's removing so much money. But she didn't have her remove it all at once. She had her remove several transactions over a 4-day period, in which then she was coached into telling the tellers that she was doing it for the purpose of repairing her house, which had been damaged during the hurricane, which was not. So, but she's doing this for the purpose of the possibility that the tellers could be involved in hacking their bank. So she says, we have to be very careful on how we're moving the money, and we just don't trust these tellers. So she's like, it's very important that you're telling him exactly why you're taking the money, but it's not going to be the reason why she's actually taking it out, which is to put in this, to put in this crypto kiosk. So then on July 12th, on the day of the actual robbery, the victim withdraws $19,000, which is the last day of this. And so she withdraws $19,000 and she goes to this convenience store at 2111 Fannin to make a deposit into this machine. While she's there, you can see what happens is these two males, in which, watching the video, they were there before. They're probably somebody that lives in the area. I feel very confident that we can probably get them identified. I'm quite sure somebody's going to recognize them. And as a reminder, Crime Stoppers does pay for $5,000 for tips leading to arrest and charges of the suspects. So I'm quite sure just that within itself is going to be enough to, justify somebody calling into Crime Stoppers, and you do remain anonymous. So she withdraws $19,000. She gets robbed at this location. Again, we're not completely convinced that these suspects are related to the incidents leading up to this actual robbery itself. It looks like we're going to have two different incidents. Very unfortunate for the victim, in which she's been scammed out of all this money, but now she's also been scammed she's been robbed. So it becomes even more personal at that point because she's become a victim on two accounts. So and this is the crazy part. This is really what, just when you think you've heard enough. So she files a police report. The police come out to the scene, give her a case number and so forth. She goes home. Well, Jennifer calls her, and Jennifer says, hey, why haven't you deposited the money into the crypto kiosk? And she's like, well, I was robbed today. So Jennifer then tells the female that she needs to go back to the bank where she had just withdrawn $19,000 and withdraw another $19,000, in which she does, because she is convinced that her money is in jeopardy, in which Jennifer is very, very good at what she does and being able to explain why and so forth. So these scammers are very, very good at what they do. This is what they do for a living, basically. So she then goes back to the bank, withdraws another $19,000, goes back to this same location in which she was robbed on the same day, and the clerk sees her and he's like, well, I'll stand here just to make sure you don't get robbed so you can get this money deposited safely into this account. So she then again puts the money into the account. So the case got assigned to our detective and in the robbery division, and he went and made a home visit and informed her that she needed to remove the app, in which she did, and then so ultimately she had three accounts. She had a third account in which was not as accessible on the first day as the other ones were. So they didn't know exactly how much money, but they knew she had a lot of money in this other account, which they were not able to access. But just to give you an idea as to how persistent, so because once we went to her house and informed her that she needed to not answer her phone and talk to these people because it was a complete scam, she didn't answer her phone. And so she then received, about the next day after the detective told her not to answer the phone, and these people call like 17 times in the same day in order to try to gain access, in order to try to convince her that this is not a scam. But that's how articulate that's how thorough these people are in these scams, is that they're wanting to do whatever they need to, and as convincing as possible that they're for real and they're, the real thing. So I spoke to her, and I've talked to her about the incident. And the thing with her, when I think an 80-year-old female, maybe she's not very responsive and a little slow, and just because of age and so forth. I think over time, as we all get older, we forget a little easier and so forth. But in speaking to her, you wouldn't realize that you're speaking to an 80-year-old female. She's very responsive, very articulate in how she talks, and very well spoken. So it just leads me more to believe that scammers like this, and they exist. And the other important thing is that she had not even informed her family of all this. And and she explained to me that she was embarrassed. And you know, the thing is you shouldn't be embarrassed, because that's what these scammers do. They pry on the, you know, elderly and trying to convince them, you know, of stuff like this. So it's very, very important to make the community aware of this type of, you know, scammer and scenario and so forth. Does anybody have any questions?
When you talk about making the community aware, what would your advice be to the community?
So basically like the same advice I gave my mom after this, because first thing I did is call my parents, who are older as well, and inform my mom, like, hey, look, somebody ever called you and spoke to you and was trying to convince you, call, you know, me or my sister and run it by us, run it by somebody. It's like I told this female yesterday, and I gave her my number, and I said, listen, I said, if for some reason you ever have any question, it is perfectly okay to take down that person's phone number and tell them I'll call you back. And like in the same instance with this, you know, she's basically convinced that this bank that, you know, they're involved in the, she was just basically coached exactly as to what to say during these robberies. So it's just, they're just really good. So it's okay to check with somebody. Or she could have, another advice like I had mentioned is that it would have been okay to hang up the phone and call the actual bank itself and ask to speak to a manager or somebody of higher authority in that bank, and not take a number that they gave you, but take a number in which you find online, and, you know, for the actual bank, and then speak to somebody at that point to just verify. If anything seems uncomfortable, there's nothing ever wrong with taking a time out and saying, okay, well, let me get your information, let me call you back. And I would feel comfortable at that point that they would probably be aware that they, you know, somebody might be onto them. So then at that point, not, you know, going any further with that as far as making anything happen.
So we know she lost $38,000 from the 2 times that she went to this place with $19,000 each time. And there was more money.
I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. So over the period of 4 days, she makes 7 transactions into this crypto kiosk, and so she ended up being out a total of about $76,000 in cash. 57 or so is what went into the crypto machine, and then 19,000 is where the suspects in this robbery come into play, in which they got. So, and then the investigation on our part in the robbery division is active, and it's ongoing. So, you know, the detective that's working the case, as well as a grand jury subpoena, as far as receiving the information to who the address goes. The problem is and the fear is if it's in another country or something, you know, then at that point we probably have to reach out to our federal partners and so forth, in which we even in our division have officers assigned to FBI and ATF, in which we can consult with them as far as, you know, taking the next step into that investigation if it's overseas and so forth. But so we really have no idea. So this is, and basically the story is going to make a lot of people very angry. You know, I mean, it's anytime an elderly person or a child is involved in a crime where they have really no control over, it's very hard to take it very personal. That's why I'm very convinced that these guys are going to get identified, because the fact that maybe they're not the ones who took the total amount, but because the fact that the reason why she's here at this point is because she's been scammed the last 4 days, and these guys then prey on her and take advantage of her, and then, you know, take her money. She wouldn't have been there if it was, you know, wasn't for the scammers. She had never even been to this location before. She had no reason to be there, but she had to do a search and finding out where these kiosks were at. This so happens to be one of those locations.
So $57,000 went into the kiosk.
Correct.
Over a period
Mhm.
plus the 38,000 that she lost, or from the 19,000 that was taken from her.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other question? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Hey, Jody, keep that video running.
Oh, yeah, of course. And it's also uploaded on YouTube,
Okay.
so y'all can get it off
So
of
on the night she gets.
that later.
Right,
Copy that.
she takes out over 40 period, she would draw 76.
Yeah.
In cash. And then on that day of the 12th, she goes to make $19,000. She withdraws another 19,
Mhm.
right? She goes to make the deposit, that's when she gets robbed. She goes back a second time, takes out another 19.
Right.
Okay.
Same day, yeah.
Same day, and then she deposits that.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And were her accounts completely wiped out?
So, yeah, she said that she told me that she had about, I want to say she said she had about $400 left in this second account where she took out the 19,000. She had taken other withdrawals as well, but ultimately their goal was to get to a third account in which she had, but it had a few more loopholes in being able to just log in on it. So it was something that they had issues with, and they couldn't see what she had in it as well. They just knew that the money was a large sum of money, and that was their ultimate goal, was to get to this third account.
So it's safe to report that of the two accounts they were able to access, and she was able to get this money out of, she was left with $400 at the end.
Yeah, she with the majority of it, because she mentioned the amount for the second one. She didn't mention exactly what was left for her, but she did mention that they did take out most of the money out of her accounts.
Got it.
Can you spell your name for me?
Sure, Jeff, Jeff, Breeden, B as in boy, Rieden.
From Robbery.
Yes.
Now, being that it's a kiosk and it's somebody's property, the money's sitting in there. You just cut it open.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. You know, that's just the thing with this crypto stuff. I'm not exactly sure how all of that works and so forth. I know that it required a grand jury subpoena in order to submit the money. I don't know how quickly they take it out. It may be one of those occasions where they take it out daily, you know? So especially something to that effect, that, you know, that's such a large sum of money, you know, so.
It's been a couple months now, so.
Yeah,
Good times.
yep. You guys good?
I'm
Okay.
good, thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vic, are you ready?
Yeah, are you gonna continue streaming?
No, we've already cut the feed, so you can do it off to the side. or
Okay,
you can
yeah,
do it-
that's it, we're gonna do it off to the side, so let everybody, give everybody an opportunity to pack up and move out.
Okay.
We're good. Donde quiera, donde quiera.
Still keep the video ready.
Sí, okay. Hey, dude, can you give me a few, wrapping up with a Robbery. I'll call you back in a minute. All right.
Oh, is that what that thumbtail tag is called?
I have it improvised.
Oh, I saw it up there. I was like, that's such a weird thing to have there.